Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Es begrüßt euch wieder einmal euer Carsten Schäfer. Heute freue ich mich sehr, eine Frau willkommen zu heißen, die so unglaublich viel in der Musik macht, dass wir sicher nicht alles abdecken können. Es geht heute aber vor allem um ihr neues Projekt Mad Vantage, das gerade seine Debüt-LP Minutiae veröffentlicht hat. Ich begrüße die australische Multi-Instrumentalistin Solune. Hi Solune, how are you?
Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me. I'm well.
Nice to speak to you. And I have to say, gosh, with all your musical activities, I wondered where to start. So I thought I'll go back to the very beginning and ask you, do you come from a musical family at all?
My parents are not musicians. I actually began studying piano when I was 4 years old, and my dad, who always had a very keen interest in music, started piano lessons with me.
So what kind of music did your parents listen to?
That's a very good question. I listen to all kinds of music. I listen to Dave Brubeck and some sort of jazz records. I listened to, my mum played some alternative 70s sort of, I don't know, Doors and things like that. I also listened to Greek rock, Latin party music as well, and some classical music. So it was very varied. And but no, not musicians. My parents are not musicians. Yeah.
Did you have any musical heroes at all?
Musical heroes.
I'm not just talking about people who influenced your actual playing, but also people who just increased your love of music, that you said, oh, bloody hell, I just love music, and these people just make me love music even more.
Yeah, my cousin actually, who is older than me, he inspired me definitely because he is a musician. And so he sort of taught me a few things, my early jazz chords and things like that. But as well as him, my teachers, my music educators at school, through primary school, but mainly in my high school, secondary. Yeah, so fortunately, I had a wonderful music education in my secondary years, and I had teachers who were just totally inspiring. So, yes, definitely.
Is that why you are also an educator, why you are also a teacher? Did they influence you to become one yourself?
I think that's probably, yeah, probably yes. Because I had such a fabulous experience as a student. So it just seemed like, a wonderful thing to be able to give that, pass that on to my students. Yeah.
Before we get to Mad Vantage, which is your latest project, let's talk a little bit about the other stuff that you do. Let's talk about Lefkada, combining jazz, R&B, hip hop, and so on and so forth. Tell us a little bit about Lefkada.
Yes, so Lefkada, it's the name actually comes from the island that my dad comes from in Greece. And so yeah, it's a Western island in Greece, and the project actually originated because my partner and I, Tim, who's a drummer, who also plays in Mad Vantage, yeah, we just decided to start writing tunes together, and I was really inspired after I finished my jazz tertiary degree to write some music with lyrics because I was really jealous of my friends who were playing music that people were singing along to and dancing along to, and I thought, why not? That could be fun. Yeah.
Oh, and so that inspired the rhythmic nature of this music.
Um, More melodic exploration, because I guess I've always been rhythmic focused in all of my different compositions, but that was sort of exploring, melodic ideas and starting to use my voice more. So this was probably almost 10 years ago now that we started that project. Yeah, and we're inspired by sort of Disclosure and some other sort of pop house music like Daft Punk and, you know, houseier electronic music that also had really catchy melodic ideas. Yeah.
And then there's something completely different, and that's ISM, a piano trio, which I would say is a bit more traditional jazz. Would that be correct?
Yes. So I have to say that it probably was my earlier influences through my secondary schooling. I was heavily inspired by Keith Jarrett and really loved ECM records around. There's so many amazing ECM records. Tord Gustafsson, there's so many that I could just talk your ear off. But I guess that project started when I was studying at the Victorian College of the Arts with two of my colleagues and friends, Maddie Carter and Isaac Ganu. So we decided to give a piano trio a try, and that was a really fun time, and it allowed us to really develop our craft as musicians, as our first main original project coming out of studying at university. So yeah, it was awesome to be able to have the freedom and the time, when we were young, to be able to dedicate to, a democracy project. I like to call these projects, and, people give generously with their time and energy. So it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
But, my dear Solune, we are not done yet. You are also a session musician. We're not going to talk about all the sessions you've done, because otherwise we'd be sitting here in another few days or something. But give us a little insight into who you play with and what your criteria are to take on a job as a session musician.
Good question. I play mainly contemporary based music. I mean, I've done all sorts of art music projects in the past, but nowadays I guess it's more contemporary music. It could be sort of jazz influenced music like R&B, and but it doesn't have to be. There's pop music and there's electronic influences, and I guess people ask this question a lot, but someone at university, one of my lecturers, was talking about, he had this triangle of, why should you take on a gig? And he said one of the triangle points is that obviously it has to be, has to pay you something. And one of the other things is that there are good people involved. And the other thing is that there's good music involved. And he said, if it fulfills two of the three criteria, then why not go for it? I also think I'd like to add a few more to this, where maybe ethics is another part of it, and opportunity could be another part. So, if Madonna asked me to play tomorrow with no time and preparation for $100, I'd probably still say yes. I would be stressed, but I would say yes.
Who would you say no to?
Oh, I don't know.
Sexists? Oh.
Sexist, yes, absolutely.
Taylor Swift, you would say no to. Why? Why?
The Trump inauguration, I don't know. Things that you really politically don't align with. So
absolutely. Now, we already talked about you being a teacher. What exactly do you teach, and whom do you teach?
I teach, over the last 15 years, I have taught in high schools. I have taught as a private music teacher. I have taught have run a not-for-profit, co-run a not-for-profit youth music charity called YoWo Music, which was for young women and gender diverse teenagers, which was so rewarding. And I also now teach at a tertiary music institution, Collarts, which is here in Melbourne. But in my private teaching nowadays, I teach mature age students, and I am a massive music nerd, and I am really passionate and really dedicated to people who want to get to the bottom of why music works and why music doesn't work, and all of the spectrum in between, so it's really fun for me.
Oh, you're a music nerd. Who'd have thought? In view of everything that you have been doing so far. Now, I wanted to talk about YoWo Music very quickly because this is for equality, women, diverse people, and so on and so forth. How do you see the role of women in music today? Obviously, I think it is getting a little better, but it still leaves a lot to be desired, both when it comes to female musicians, but also to people who have, say, power positions in the music business.
Absolutely. And visibility and equity and opportunity is so important, and community is so important for people who used to look like me when I was a teenager and looking into a career in music and whether that was even a viable option for me at all. And it really helps to see people who are doing well and really fighting. And unfortunately, being a woman in music is still political, and it's still high responsibility because unfortunately or fortunately, I am representative of my gender. So, I'm not, I'm not afforded the sort of, how shall I say, like if James on guitar has a bad gig, well, then James has a bad gig. But if I have a bad gig, then women can't play music, so it's a really tough position to be in. But also, I think it's an important one for me to just keep being seen so that there's more people who do go into music who are women and gender diverse people. So, I'm doing it for them more than just people who are, not more than just myself. Yeah.
So I take it that you don't just have fun in music, but that it was and probably still is quite a bit of a struggle, is it?
I mean, there's a lot to consider. There's notes, there's rhythms, but there's also mental health and, like community and all of this stuff that is not just musical. There's anxiety, there's imposter syndrome, there's have I practiced enough, there's who am I excited to play with, there's your hopes and your dreams, and that can absolutely play into a much bigger picture than what you just see on the outside. Yeah. As it is, I'm sure, for everybody.
Probably, yes. So finally, we get to the project at hand, Mad Vantage. Now, the question I have is this a project which might be dissolved at any time, or is it a band that is here to stay?
It's definitely a band that's here to stay. I would say it's my primary project at the moment. And some of this music I actually wrote 10 years ago when I was studying university, and only really starting to get to discovering that actually I'm a metalhead at heart, because I didn't have that angsty teenage phase where I was listening to Metallica when I was 15. I actually listened to ECM records when I was 15. So now I'm having the Metallica phase. I'm having the Meshuggah phase. I'm having the heavier Tool and Animals as Leaders and, like really just discovering that I love heavy music. Yeah. So definitely here to stay.
In the name of equality, tell us about the other band members, please. Who are they?
So I mentioned Tim Cox, who is my partner in crime and in life. So, yep, it wouldn't be a project without him. And fortunately, I have a live-in drummer that I can practice with at any time, and that is fantastic. I also have Kumar Shom on guitar, who has graciously dedicated his time and passion to my project. Matt Hayes on bass played on the record, but I now have an 8-string guitarist, Ben Finnis, who's joined in the last few gigs and will continue on with the project. Yeah.
So why start yet another project, which is musically different than the others? Are we going to see another like 10, 15 projects of Solune over the next 10, 15 years?
This one feels like the one to stay. This one really feels like the one that represents my heart and soul and my identity, not only as a musician, but as a person. I am unapologetic, and my friends and family would 100% back that up. I am, a sort of fierce in whether you like that word or not like that word. I have strong opinions. I love maths, and I feel like, and I'm really detail oriented, so I feel like this project really just makes a statement, and it says this is who I am, and here's my identity right there for you all to hear and see.
Why did you call it Mad Vantage? It seems to me like there's, of course, the word mad in, but also advantage. Am I totally wrong?
No, that's on purpose. Yeah. And part of it was a dream that one day women can exist in this music. Women can be seen in this music. So it felt like putting my foot forward and being like, I'm giving the future of this music an advantage, hopefully. I'm giving myself an advantage by just starting with the project, and it's a little bit mad, so why not?
So, and why did you call the LP Minutiae?
Minutia, so I touched on it before about how detail-oriented I am as a person, and
Okay.
just hyper fixated on the tiny mundane details of everyday life, and not just musical, but I care about the way that I cut my onions perfectly, and I care about where I hang my clothes exactly and how I'm going to wash them, and every hair on my face, everything should be in its right place. So minutia just felt like the perfect word for the record that's taken 5 years, and just me as a person. Yeah.
Being such a stickler for detail, is that exhausting in your daily life?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, 100%. Yes, it is exhausting. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Because it makes me slightly crazy, and that's okay. And you love it or hate it, and that's how I am, and I'm just going to be unapologetic about that. Because
Now,
sometimes you find pure gold, and sometimes things suck, but sometimes you find magic. Yeah.
as long as you have a good night's sleep, I think you're ready for the next day of minutiae, I think. Now,
Sleep.
We talked about the gender thing. The LP is instrumental, but
Yes.
there's like a title like matriarch, which speaks clearly for what it is. Now, how do you convey the strength of women in instrumental music? Is it just that you are the head of this band, that you write the songs and so on and so forth? What is it?
Part of it is that. Part of it is, again, carrying the torch for future generations of, people to come in this music and to be loud and to make noise and to be feminist, and it's okay to speak your mind and your truth, but it's also honoring all the women that have come before me to make me the strong woman that I am. I come from a very long lineage of very strong, very powerful women, and not just in my family, but like even in Australia, we have such, First Nations people here are so matriarchal, and you have to at least, like I'm on somebody else's land that's been here many, many generations before me. And, they had impact here. You can't just wipe history, I feel like I'm trying to serve them too, and to serve every strong, powerful woman who's come before me, and hopefully to come after me for many more generations.
So, do you actually, because since you mentioned this, a lot of people have worked for the rights of the First Nation people in Australia, giving them back what was once called Ayers Rock and so on and so forth. Are you also active in that regard?
I mean, I try to be an ally as much as I possibly can be, and I am very open and very outspoken about my views. And absolutely, yep, I'm here for a conversation, and at any point, I will always give respect to people who, I am an immigrant. My parents are immigrants, so I'm not trying to pretend like I am, the first person on this country. So absolutely, yeah, it's important to do that, and especially as a musician, when you're telling stories in your music, it's important to honor the storytellers that came before you.
God, we need
Yeah.
more people like you. Seriously. Now, big point of contention here now. The
Okay.
style of Minutiae.
Okay.
It was described as jazz and metal. Now I'm 65 years old. I grew up with the music of the 70s, and I don't see any metal at all. You talked about ECM. Yes, I see that. I see people like Jean-Luc Ponty, Leo Rittenauer, Alan Holdsworth, and others, but I don't see any bloody metal. Tell us about that. Give us your two Australian cents on that.
Okay, very
Well,
good. Very good observation.
progressive rock, yes, but I grew up with that stuff and I loved it. And I find it extremely exhilarating that somebody plays this kind of music, which is not retro, but reminds me of that particular style. Right now, off the cuff, I wouldn't know anyone who plays that style currently.
Okay. Well, I will hopefully take that as a compliment.
Please do.
Definitely progressive rock, yes, but then there's this whole other style of not just metal, but progressive metal. And progressive metal is sort of the closest cousin to progressive rock that metal has. And gent is another word sort of to describe that kind of similar style that has kind of chuggy guitars and things like that. So galloping and chuggy guitars with 8-string guitars, and double kick pedals definitely are a massive feature of this album. That then actually the next record that I'm working on, the next bunch of compositions that will have been premiered when this interview comes out at the Melbourne International Jazz Festival, will be Mad Vantage album 2 of compositions. So definitely even more heavy content there. But distortion, double kick pedals, odd time signatures, implied metric modulations, other metric modulations, odd time signatures, 8-string guitars, chugging, and China cymbals, I guess, is my answer to is this metal? I guess that's my answer. Yeah.
And another thing which I see is that the synthesizer is very much in the forefront. It takes really center stage, which on the records I was talking about usually isn't. It's more like sinking into the general arrangement. But here it takes center stage. Was that the plan all along?
I mean, yeah, definitely. And it wouldn't be my music, I guess, because I wrote this music on the piano on keyboards, and it started there. And so I guess if the keyboards weren't such a central part of the music, then I guess it wouldn't be representative of my art. So yeah.
Mhm. What about the song Cataclysm? It's divided up into 3 parts, 2 of which are fairly short. I have an idea why you might have split it up. I want you to tell us why you split it up and didn't just make it into one song.
Yeah, so the first part was this free improvisation that I played. Definitely that's the most ECM part of this entire record. I played it entirely on the piano that was there in the studio. And then I had this idea I wanted it to sort of melt into the next part with the ostinato that I wrote. And it was actually, I should have just recorded it to a metronome the entire time, but actually I didn't. And trying to figure out how that worked seamlessly was quite more difficult than you would think. And the final part was just Tim and I sort of going, okay, we're going to play anti, because we don't necessarily love free jazz. And so we just had this moment where we just thought, let's just play noise for about a minute, really fast and as sort of chaotically as we can. And just this general shape of starting really massive and just petering out. And it sort of worked so organically and so well like that. And it sort of made sense to put it right at the end of the record. And I was trying to figure out about a lovely title to sort of tie them all together, those 3 parts. And it sort of made sense to me, Cataclysm being this sort of natural disaster. And I had the imagery of like volcanic eruptions. So that makes sense for like magma being the most sort of definitive part of the 3. And anyone could listen to either part and it could just be like a little standalone thing if they wanted to. But definitely magma is the main part of the composition. And then Fuma, in terms of the names, I made that name up actually. Fuma is based on sort of fumare in Italian, to set alight. So I imagine sort of embers and kindling. I was looking into different words like kindling and, starting a fire. And then magma is this sort of lava, big, and the word sort of feels very, I don't know, grandiose or something. Magma sounds so big and bold. And then tephra sort of feels just like little fragments of exploding chaos. Yeah.
Wonderful. But you don't mind me playing all 3 parts in one go, do you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Was
It
that
makes sense in 3, yeah.
absolutely, yes. And the explanation you gave totally makes sense for 3 parts actually being on the record. Do you have a favorite song on the record at all?
I think my favorite tune is Ictus. Both Ictus and Matriarch, but I think Ictus, it was the one that I wrote the most recently, and it feels like the sound of where Mad Vantage is going to continue on. So it feels like one of the heaviest tunes. and just like totally headbanging, thrashing China cymbals and mad distortion. And I remember the bass player saying to me, like, this feels like there's more music to come in this direction. And absolutely, that's true.
Well, I don't have to ask you about new stuff because you already answered that hypothetical question by saying yes, you're already working on new stuff. There's one more thing I would like to know. You have received quite a few honors, quite a few awards. What do they mean to you?
Well, the first thing is they totally came out of the blue. I mean, of course, you apply for these things, but you never expect anything to come of them. And it just feels like I'm not really into competitions, and I don't believe music should ever be a competition, pitting one person against another person, because who's to judge, what's valid and what's not valid when we're talking about art. But it just gives you the strength to keep going, because you question whether you can sustain a life in this crazy pursuit that you decide that you're going to undertake when you're naive and 16 years old. You question that every day, and you question, whether you're going to get lifelong fulfillment. Actually, that's not totally true. I know that I'm going to have lifelong fulfillment from music, but you just go like, okay, where's the support? Do I have community? Do I have friends? Do I have people who believe in me? And you question your own belief every day. But the awards are just this lovely little reminder from the universe that actually it's okay, keep going. And you have to be grateful.
On the other end of the spectrum, I'm sure you played in school bands and stuff, didn't you?
Yes, many.
Are there recordings that you would pay $1 million for not to ever see the light of day?
Actually, no. Good question. But no, because it shows a journey. And as an educator, I feel so strongly that every part of the process should be documented, and it shouldn't just be the highlight, perfect, end game, finish line trophy that gets celebrated. It should be like, oh, actually one time 12 years ago I played this tune and it was a bit crap, but I was learning, so I think it's actually special to, I would never want to hide any of, they're embarrassing, but I don't think I would want to conceal them from the world.
Actually, I'm very glad you say this because I read this when I was 14 or 15 in a music mag, and the drummer and founder of one of the most famous German progressive rock bands said this too. He said, record everything, no matter whether you think it's crap, just record it, because one day when you're an adult, you hate it. So I started recording my stuff when I was 14, and I'm glad I did, even though sometimes it's a bit cringeworthy.
Absolutely. And it shows you today. Like, I can look back and say, when I'm having a bad day, I go, oh, I can do something now that I couldn't do a few years ago. So that's cool.
Right. Now, time for a little commercial break. Tell us where people can find you and your music, how it's available, social media, website, and so on and so forth.
Yes. So it's on Bandcamp. Definitely. You can get a 12-inch LP vinyl, which I designed the cover front and back. It took me many hours of my time and sanity, but I'm very proud of it. And it is nice to have a physical record to show people. There are also CDs, also on Bandcamp, through either my page or the Artist Catharsis label page. My music is also, you can find it on Instagram. I mean, you can keep up with me on Instagram, Solune_Mad Vantage. I also have a website, www.SeleneMedsinis.com. And I mean, there's streaming services as well. I would personally love to make an artist request for people to move their consumption of music off Spotify if possible. So, even Tidal is better, even Apple Music is better. So there's YouTube as well. The music videos are on YouTube to watch us, really fly by the seat of our pants, playing through exactly the take and the live recording that is on the record. You can watch it there in video form. So there's Matriarch and Ictus. Yes.
Brilliant. Now, I have to say, you seem fairly sane to me. However, I think in order to make a definite judgment, I would have to talk to your partner, Tim, because he might know better than me. I have a few more questions which don't really have anything to do with your music, but I would like to ask them anyway.
Great.
If at this very moment, right now, you could only take one record to the desert island with you, which one would it be?
Keith Jarrett, the Cologne concert.
First track, the best.
I actually think the third one is the best.
See, there you go. Dog, cat, or goldfish?
Cat.
Okay. I thought it might be a dog because it seems like all Australians seem to have dogs.
No, I'm definitely a cat person.
And another thing, I don't even know whether that applies to you being an active musician yourself, but sometimes a song or a tune or part of a song gets in your head and stays there and develops into a torturing earworm. Is there anything that qualifies for that has happened to you in the past few weeks, months, or whatever?
Oh, that's a strange question because I get melodies in my head all the time, but sometimes I don't know where they come from. Sometimes I just start singing something, but I'm not sure. Sometimes I sing something and I go, where did that come from? And then Tim says, oh, that's a tune of mine. So it's one of his things that I've just started singing, or something that he has been practicing because he's also a session musician. So one of the artists that he's playing for gets something stuck in my head. Yeah, they sort of come out of nowhere. It's less sort of pop, big pop, Sabrina Carpenter's, and just more random little melodies that I tend to be exposed to again and again. That, it's stuff that I've written because I'm practicing it 7,000 times, just like the 3-note section. It's driving me crazy. I guess that's the stuff that sticks. Yeah.
Because you are that stickler for detail, as we now know.
That's, yes.
Another thing, do you still have some object from your early childhood that has survived the time that you still have and that you still appreciate?
Good question. I have some jewelry that was given to me by my late aunt, and I wear they're little silver earrings, and I wear them probably every second day, and I think about her.
Well, that's
And
wonderful.
I got these earrings 25 years ago.
Well, and as we say, a person is only dead when he or she has been forgotten. So that won't happen to your aunt. And the very last thing I would like to ask you is, we've talked about all sorts of things, but is there something very important to you, very dear to your heart, that you would like to tell our listeners?
I mean, yes, good question. Please listen to the record. Please send me a message telling me about something, some tiny small detail. Doesn't matter if it's like 4 minutes, 37 seconds into some very random tune, deep in Ictus somewhere, that you go, hey, that moment really spoke to me. Or I hated that note, because that's also great. Doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. I want the passion and I want the specificity.
So if somebody criticizes you, you don't bash their heads in.
I think because one of my highest values is authenticity. And as long as people are doing it with love in their heart, then you can't fault it because opinions are opinions, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, yes, and one can discuss them. Solune, thank you so very much for this wonderful interview. It's been highly enlightening, informative, and funny too. And thank you also for the wonderful Mad Vantage record. I can't wait for more because I'm a glutton. And when the next record comes out, I would like to talk about it at length with you again, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carsten. It was so fun.
Thank you. Have a wonderful one. Bye.
Thank you. See ya. Thank you.